Usually you say, you're at a plant and, oh, corporate has, oh, okay, sure, yeah. Like corporate is an institution, it's like a supreme being, and it's not, it's us, it's people. Like compliance, oh, compliance, that's, so I'll give an example. And SOX, for example. We need SOX, and we're gonna be very good at SOX. And our SOX compliance is gonna be great, 100%. But it's not necessarily that somebody says, hey, I'm putting this huge bureaucracy here, but it's for SOX. Oh, okay, sure. Oh, hold on a second, we'll get SOX done. It doesn't mean that we need to do something that's completely crazy. There was a deal that I hope that if there's anybody in Australia, it's still solved since then, otherwise we're gonna look bad. But I remember that when we were first implementing SOX in Australia, that was one of the things that our cattle buyers that were out in the middle of the interior of the country, a lot of times with really bad internet connection, they had to be, in the past they would call somebody and enter their cattle procurement. They had to be the ones on their computer. Well, the problem is a lot of times they spend like hours without access to computer, and they had to start doing weird, bad things to get that data in there. And oh, why are we doing this? Oh, SOX. Oh, hold on a second. Cattle buyers in Brazil, the cattle buyers in the US, they're not doing that. So why? Oh no, we can do it in a different way. So we're not questioning SOX. We're not questioning the department compliance. We're not questioning the existence of corporate when we question something. We're questioning that process. Can it be better? And a lot of times it seems like it's the fallacy of authority, right? Oh, corporate told us to do it, so we got to do it. Somebody really thought this through. A lot of times, not really. So we got to really be careful. Whenever you question bureaucracy, or somebody questions you on bureaucracy, and your argument is, oh, it's an argument of authority, you're wrong. No matter what it is, you're wrong, because there's no such thing as an argument of authority. Answer why the rule makes sense. Explain why the process makes sense. And if you don't know, say, I don't know, let me get back to you. Find out why it is, and then come back and explain to the person. Because maybe it's not bureaucracy, and the person will think it's bureaucracy. Or maybe it is bureaucracy and you have to change. So, but this authority thing, it's a problem. And it creates this image too. We gotta be careful. Like, if all the time, when there is a complication, a person in a plant says, oh, it's from corporate, oh, it's from corporate. They probably think that all that corporate does is this, right? They get up in the morning and think, how can I make their life difficult? And that's not what, and nobody's doing here. It's actually the other way around. When I was in Uruguay, there was a guy that used to say, and I agree 100%, this was, I don't know, 12 years ago, that we are a packing house with an office at the back. We're not an office with a packing house at the back, right? We're a packing house. Then we have an office to help. We're not an office that has packing houses. So those orders are important. And we can't allow the plant to think that it's different than them. The other thing I would say, you hear that sometimes, and it's so frustrating. And again, we can never say those things. And if we hear that, we need to be really questioning. And you can quote this talk that we're having here anytime if you hear this. You hear that sometimes. Hey, let's do this. Yeah, that makes sense. But our rule doesn't allow it. No, but the process doesn't allow it. It makes total sense what you're saying. We actually should do it. But we can't, because there is a rule that doesn't. What the hell are we doing? Who's the boss here? Is the process is the boss, or the people are the boss? People are the ones that use a process. It's not a process, and you have a bunch of people inside the process, kind of in a, what's the hamster kind of wheel, and we're like, no, that's not the process. If that's the process, throw it away. It's the other way around. It's people making decisions with processes that they are in control. So whenever you hear stuff like, well, it makes total sense to do this, but we can't. Well, it's the other way around. We are just inside of a wheel running. It's completely wrong, and that's not what we believe at all. One thing to be clear, I'll say this later on, processes are very important. All the stuff that we do, we have 75,000 team members here. You can't manage 75,000 team members without processes. We process millions of animals every day in a way that needs to have food safety, that needs to take care of our safety of our people, needs to meet quality specifications of our customers. You cannot do any one of those things without processes. Processes are so important. But here's the problem. Processes need to be subordinate to people, number one. It can't be the other way around. So when you start hearing phrases that sound like people are subordinates to, that's a problem. There's a team and they have processes that they control. It's not the other way around. The other thing too, processes are great at solving process problems. They're terrible, they're a disaster at solving people problems. And this is, I think, where a lot, I'm now talking about how I think bureaucracy gets created. I think one of the main ways that it gets created is there is a people problem. It could be, I have a guy that's not experienced and not trained, and they made a mistake. Or I have a person that's not the right person for the role, made a mistake. Or I have not enough resources to that person that's really good, but not enough resources. Or people just make mistakes. It's a great guy, trained, and just made a mistake. And it was a bad mistake. We don't want that to happen again. Way to solve it? It's a people problem. You have to solve it through people. But it's so uncomfortable to solve a people problem because you have to deal with people. And deal with people a lot of times demand conflict. Not conflict, but positioning. In a way that somebody probably or maybe they're not going to agree. And so we're afraid of that conflict, and what we do, instead of sitting down with the person and giving tough feedback or making, putting the person to go do some training or tagging with somebody that's more experienced, or maybe even, it happens, making a personal change. Before we do those things, no. Let me do this. Again, let's say that there was one person that made a mistake. 9 people didn't make a mistake. 99 people didn't make a mistake. No. Here's how we're going to solve this problem. Before anybody does this ever again, they need to talk to a guy in corporate. Perfect. I solved the problem, and I didn't even have to talk to anybody. No conflicts. Conflict avoided. Well, perfect. There were 99 people that never did anything wrong, and now they need to get something approved because one guy got it wrong. And instead of talking to the guy, instead of dealing with that guy in the right way with a people problem, I threw a process solution. Bureaucracy. Process solutions in people problems equals bureaucracy. And the problem is, whenever you confront the person that did the bureaucracy, they had a good intention. They wanted that problem never to happen again. It's fair. They never wanted to, but they did it in the wrong way. The medicine killed the patient instead of, that's a problem. So I really think that this is how 90% of bureaucracy is created. I have a problem. I need to deal with somebody. It's messy. Dealing with people is messy. We're all people. We're all messy to deal with. A lot of times it's easy. A lot of times it's not. We sometimes are not easy. Just people. We're all people. There's 250,000 of us at JBS, and we're all similar in this aspect. And then it's difficult. It's conflict. I don't want it. Bureaucracy. It's a nightmare. And 99 people get upset. One of the people said, "Okay, fine." Doesn't change much. They might make a mistake again, but the only thing now is that somebody else is going to catch it. It's a problem. So I really think that it's this deal. Who is subordinate to who? Is the team that has a process, or there's a process and there is a team that basically, if it's vice versa, that's a huge problem. And we need to discuss. I will talk about some suggestions on how we should fight this. The deal is about fighting, not identifying. Being simple is very difficult. Being simple is very difficult. Think about engineering, right? It's very easy to make a complicated machine. It's very difficult to make very difficult to make a simple machine. It's very difficult. It's very easy to make a machine with full. If there is any engineers in the room and connected, you guys know. A complicated machine is relatively simple to do. There is a phrase, not to get too philosophical, but from Pascal, that he wrote to a friend. He said, sorry for the long letter. I didn't have time to make it short. It's a lot of times how he works with us. It's much more complicated to be simple. It's a lot more complicated. And it takes a lot more ownership. It takes a lot more risk-taking to be simple, because it's very easy. You know something? You're a leader and you don't want to take risk. Oh, we need to make this decision. Let me get a college of people to help me. And then we make a wrong decision and we say, no, it wasn't me. It was all of us. It doesn't make much of a difference. We still made a mistake. To be simple, it takes somebody who's willing to take a risk. No, I made a mistake. It was me. I made a wrong call. I thought it was going to work and it didn't work out. That was me. It's a lot easy, it's a lot safer for a leader to say, yeah, there's this, you know what, let me get 3 other people to be part of the decision. And again, that bureaucracy, because it takes longer, it takes this debate, and usually when you got a group of people, they go to the least common denominator. They don't make a tough call. They make an easy call. They make the call that's the safest for the group. It takes leadership to be simple. It takes a lot of leadership to be simple. And it takes a lot of risk taking, and it takes a lot of confidence to be simple. So that's usually a deal too. That's why I think bureaucracy sometimes happens. When you have a person, and I'm not talking just a leader as in having people reporting to you. You're a leader in your process. You could have nobody reporting to you. And you're not confident, sometimes you're going to make, a lot of times you're going to make bureaucracy happen because you're not sure, you're afraid of making a decision. What's going to happen if somebody catches me making a mistake? You know what, let me call out a process. That's a problem too. So it takes strong leadership to be simple. It's not easy. It also takes a leader that's going to, and I mean, leader doesn't need to mean that you have people reporting to you. You can be a leader and not have anybody reporting to you. You're leading some work, and you need to be able to question the status quo, especially when the bureaucracy is already there. Because a lot of times what you hear is, this process has always been there. For example, I'm going to just call it out. I'm questioning a little bit this whole AFE deal. Sometimes we have like 30 people, 40 people approving it. Like we're changing our, Jeff, we're changing our like logo, JBS logos in the plans. It could take 100 days. It's a logo. It's a sign outside the wall. It's a sign. It's a signage. And then you need this person to approve, this person to approve. And then when you question the AFE, a lot of times it's actually interesting. The users, a lot of times say, yeah, it's a long process, but it's been like that for a long time and it works. We're used to it. Don't worry. That's so bad. Actually, I mean, it's the second step we have at this deal of making it simpler, this whole AFP process. I remember we were in a deal that Tomazoni invited us to get all the leadership in the company. We were all talking about, and we were talking about simplicity. I brought that up of AFEs, and we had a round table that we were discussing. One guy said, "No, look, it's not as bad. It's here on my phone." And I said, "Let me see what." We had the CFO of one of our business units approving a water cooler. That was the one he showed us. That's bureaucracy. There is no need for that. There is absolutely no need for a CFO of the business unit to approve a water cooler. If the GM in the plant can't approve a water cooler, there's something completely wrong here. There's something completely wrong. So again, and a lot of times when you want to fight something like this, actually the users are like, it's okay, we're used to this, don't worry. We usually approve it really fast. I don't care if it's fast. There's 30 people that need to approve it pretty fast. And these people could be doing something else. And plus, if you can approve it really fast and you have to approve 100 things, you probably don't approve it well. I prefer that you approve 10 things instead of 100 and approve it really well. Instead of just going there and say, because usually what happens, and I bet in a lot of these AFEs is, I look there, I look at the list of people who already approved it before, I say, I trust this guy. They read it through it. And if everybody does that, a mistake is made. The other thing too, that's also, I think it's a smaller percentage, but we got to be very careful. There is a little bit of a silo thing as well. It's bureaucracy, but it's kind of I want to approve this, Oh, no, you don't need to approve it anymore. What do you mean? Hold on a second. This is I've approved this forever. I'm going to approve this. Why not? No, you don't need to approve it anymore. Well, why not? You're not going to value my input. It's a little bit of silo, feudal thing. This is my territory. Don't touch my bureaucracy. People don't say it, but it's a feeling. It's a feeling. I've given input on this for 10 years. Oh, but your input, is it really valuable? It's just taking time from you. I don't care. I've done it for 10 years. Obviously people don't say it, but it's kind of a little bit in the back of everybody's mind. So this is what it looks like. This is how it's created. Why it's dangerous. And I'll get to how we fight it at the very end. Why it's dangerous. First thing that's very dangerous, it sounds pretty reasonable. A lot of bureaucracy sounds pretty reasonable. It sounds reasonable. One thing I've heard a lot, and please don't, I'll just say, it's probably one of the things that drives me the craziest about bureaucracy. It's when people say, oh, no, no, no. Hey, look, you're thinking this is bureaucracy? I've used it to work in a company that's pretty same size as JBS and even smaller. It's a lot more complicated over there. I couldn't care less. Actually, when people say that to me, I feel I don't feel the blood in my hand, and it goes to, I'm not kidding. It's like no, you can't say that. Come on. I don't care if somebody's more bureaucratic than me, so I should be happy. It's a disaster when people say that. Oh, no, no. Big companies, no, it's common. The size that we are, it's pretty reasonable to be. And it's, when people say it, it sounds reasonable, but it should make our blood boil, because it's basically us giving in, saying, oh, there's nothing we can do. We're big, so we gotta realize this, guys. We were a $2 billion company, like not even 20 years ago. Not even 20 years ago. 18 years ago. We were a $2 billion company. Fat beef is $13 billion. It's a $13 billion company. $2 billion company. A lot of our smallest BUs here was JBS. Not even 18 years ago. We grew because we were simple. We bought Swift because we were simple. Not because we went in the process, we did a better due diligence. We were just simple in the way we did this. We bought Pilgrims because we were pretty simple. You had a bunch of people looking and being complicated, and we were simple. We bought Cargill without doing a due diligence. I'm not saying that that's how we do things, but we bought Cargill, we bought Otama, and we bought Beardstown without doing a due diligence. We bought Tyson of Mexico, Tyson of Brazil without doing a due diligence. I don't know, 7 packing houses in that acquisition, right? I don't know, probably between Mexico and Brazil. I'm not saying that all our acquisitions are without due diligence, but being simple was always a trait that we have. And that's what brought us here. If we lose that, this is why I think it's the biggest risk. We're going back. We could be a $2 billion company in 20 years if we lose this. Same way as we grew from $2 billion to 77. If we lose the simplicity, there is nothing that holds us from being a $2 billion again in 18 years. Why not? If it's possible to go up, why is it not possible to go down? It's actually, you should expect that it's, if you don't, we're not careful, the tendency is to go down. It's like gravity, right? You gotta be careful. We actually have to be lifting ourselves up, because otherwise the trend is to go down. So if we lose what brought us here, simplicity was one of the huge aspects of this whole thing. So we gotta be very careful. So the other thing too that it's very dangerous about bureaucracy, it makes people feel it's okay not to be determined. You know, one of our biggest values is determination. And it's usually the toughest one to explain, because everybody thinks they're determined. Everybody, oh, I'm determined. But when you say, hey, let's say a team gets together and say, yeah, let's do this, yeah, let's go. And everybody's pumped up. And then you say, well, hold on a second, guys. Hold on a second. You can't do this. We need to do this, we need to do that. And it's bureaucratic. It's a pointless process. It gets everybody. It gets everybody now. It gets everybody. So everybody was pumped up, wanted to go out there and get something done. And then somebody goes, no, don't do this. You can't do this. We're like, well, okay. And everybody just, so it takes away determination from the team. So it's very dangerous. The other thing why it's dangerous, again, we obviously should do this. This is obvious. We should do this. And then it takes 3 months to get something done because there was a long process. The last thing I'll say here, the other thing why it's really dangerous, because it's not fun. It's not fun. It makes work not fun. And great people don't like to work in places that are not fun. And I'll just say too, we've had a lot of people join our teams because they left companies that were not fun anymore. How many of that? Maybe a lot of you that are in this call have come from a company that was a great company in the past, but then you look and say, yeah, it was great, but it stopped being fun. Well, we can't be the ones that do that too, right? We got to be very careful. Because again, great people that have purpose in what they're doing, they don't want to work in a company that's bureaucratic, that don't trust. That's another thing to trust. I don't trust you, so I'll put bureaucracy. A lot of people don't like that. The other thing too, and we just got to live with this. Cutting bureaucracy is like trimming your nails. You're never going to do it and say, I'm done. Done. Trim my nails. I can go now 10 years without trimming nails. Not going to happen. You're going to have to, it's constant. You have to do it every week, or every other week. You got to take care of it. Otherwise, it just creeps. And if you think that, we did a huge analysis and it's done. We cut a lot of bureaucracy. It will come back. Just be attentive. It will come back, and it's just the nature of doing business. We're going to just make sure that we're taking care of it. Finally, how to find it. So what can we do? So I'll divide this in three sorts of actions that we can see in the company. You can see one that's the bad one, the bad action, which is basically not fighting it, either creating it or seeing it and being fine with it. And if we do that, we've already lost. We lost the game. We're done. We have bureaucracy imposed on us, and we're just fine with it. We just give in, and we don't talk about it. Or we create it, but we're not attentive to this kind of actions, and we're not attentive about ourselves. That's dangerous. We've already lost it. If we start like this, we lost the game. Then there's another type of behavior, which is basically saying, I'm going to question bureaucracy when it's applied to me. So another area puts a rule that doesn't make sense, a process doesn't make sense. I ask about it. I don't get a good question. I keep on asking in a good way. We got to be careful as well, because sometimes people just say, up in arms, and it's just, no, let's be constructive. We got to talk about things in a constructive way, because a lot of people as well, sometimes it's almost like, here's the bureaucracy, and then something doesn't go necessarily how you expect. You say, forget about it. This is a pointless. This is wasteless. Hold on a second. Let's build this. Let's be constructive here. It's easy to say this process is worthless. Why don't you propose something? You say, hey, why don't we just do this instead? For example, let's say a Filho, 30 people. Well, how many of these people? Because it's easy just to say, 5 people. Okay, but maybe out of these 30 people, how many people need to approve and how many people need to be made aware? Maybe what we can do is some people are going to be made aware and not going to need to approve it so that the process goes forward. Or maybe the other thing, so make proposals. I think that's a good deal. Question. Not to be annoying, but question. Why? And if the answer is because it's the rule or because corporate told you, that's not a good answer. We're all on the same page here. That's not a good answer. Just say, so it means that you don't know. Can you just go back, find out, and let's talk about it? I think it's a good debate. Maybe you could say it in a nicer way than I just said, but don't accept the status quo argument. That's for sure. And again, communicate in a good way. If we do this, we're going to fight a lot of bureaucracy. Now, here's the best way that we can act. And honestly, I don't know if I've ever seen it very much. If I've seen it, it's usually when the person is new to a job. They come in and they're very excited and they come in. How about you talk about your bureaucracy? Because I've always seen people point out somebody else's bureaucracy. I've never seen people say, my team is being bureaucratic on this. How about we change this? How about we change that? I've never seen it. Honestly, I've never seen it. Maybe people just change it and decide not to talk about it. But it's very interesting. People, usually 99% of the times we hear about bureaucracy, it's somebody else's team. But I've never seen one of those teams say, you know what, I have a process here that I think we're going to simplify this. It's too complicated. Never seen it. Never seen it. But if everybody, keep on doing the first one too. It's very important. The first one, no, the second one. Keep on doing that, of calling out when you see bureaucracy. But better yet, talk about your bureaucracy. But I don't see any bureaucracy. Here's the other thing too. When it comes to simplicity, the reason why we don't have McKinsey and Bain and Accenture here in this building, and I pray that we never have one of those guys here, or if it is, it's for something, except for like maybe global taxes or for stuff like that's very specific. If we ever have one of those guys come here to teach us how to run one of our plants, how to take care of our people, how to take care, that's a problem. But the main reason why we don't have consultants is that when you have a problem and you want to fix your process and you want to improve your process and you want to either debureaucratize or you want to create a new process, instead of asking somebody that's outside and above, why don't you go to the first level of leadership? Ask the guy at the plant, hey, is it bureaucratic? What I do for you, is it bureaucratic? Am I bureaucratic? Ask the first guy. Like, let's say we want to know if admitting supplies in our plants is bureaucratic. Ask the person that's putting the PO in the system. Ask that guy. That guy's the one that knows. And if that person says, no, it's fine, ask another guy, just to make sure. That's like 3 guys. Go to the first level, because usually the bureaucracy is piled on those guys. It's not the higher up in the hierarchy you are, the least bureaucracy you see. The guy that sees all the bureaucracy is the first level. Is the guy that's actually putting stuff in the system. Is the guy that's the guy that sees all the bureaucracy. So you want to know if your processes are bureaucratic or not, and don't ask them in front of everybody. Don't put them in a position that they can't answer. Get them to the side. Say, hey, just when you're visiting a plant or when you're, hey, just help me out here. Is it bureaucratic? What? If you were in my position, that question is actually pretty good, especially if you're ever talking to plants as well. If you were in my seat, doesn't matter which one it is, and you could make a decision, all the decisions you can for one day, what would you change? Ask that. And the person will sometimes, a lot of times, people that are frustrated, they're just going to spit it out and say, all right, I will change this. And then you got three of those guys, and then one's going to build on top of the other. And if they're quiet, say, no, guys, it's impossible. Tell me something you would change. And if there's really nothing, fine, you're good. You're ready to move on. Ask your internal customers, right? Especially the closest to the action. Hold on, what else here? And a question also, okay, this process you don't think is bureaucratic. You think it's useful? Do you understand why you have to do this? Do you understand why I ask you to do this? No, not really. I just think it's, actually, I think it's pretty pointless. Well, let me explain to you why. And then the person actually, a lot of times the person is going to say, that's why you do it. Well, I'm going to take extra care. They don't know that it was that important. So again, I think we need to think about our area. Do it. Whenever somebody imposes bureaucracy on you, question them. A lot of times people are just going to defend it. 99% of people are just going to say, no. And a lot of times we are not going to win that battle. Keep on doing it. Still do it because it's important. Because if enough people do it, a lot of times it will kill the bureaucracy. Better yet, you're the owner of the process. Ask people who are internal customers again. The lowest level of the hierarchy, the first level of action, that's the guy you want to ask. Because that's the guy where it usually piles on them. And they will be very grateful for it too. So again, I'm not talking about eliminating processes. I think this is very important too. It's understanding if it's being useful, if it's oppressing people or it's actually empowering people. Is it oppressing or empowering? That's the question we need to ask. And if it's oppressing and it's not creating value, change it. That's the other thing I was going to say too. Biggest advice. In life, 99% of decisions are reversible. 99% of you made a mistake. If you're humble, it's reversible. If you're not humble, and no decision is ever reversible because you want to protect your decision because it's yours. There's the guy that heads our leather business in Brazil, Guilherme, says the phrase that's probably not. I don't know if it's his, but he says it, and I really like it. I am not. I don't have a. I'm not. How can I say it? I don't have a commitment to my mistakes. So if it's a mistake and it's mine, I have no commitment. I'll change. It's not because it's mine that I'm committed to it. No, it's mine, so I gotta defend it. So if you are humble enough, no decisions are irreversible. So just how about you scrap that part of the process? See what happens. Do it, except if it's like food safety. Be careful about like Sonneborn. I don't want, for us not to be following the law pretty soon because we want to scrap the process. So I say 99% because there is 1% there that we gotta be careful. My point is, make a move. Make a move. You're uncertain, get a partner. Get the person you report to say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think about this? How about we just eliminate this process? Let's see what happens. We'll do it and we're gonna watch it to make sure that nothing breaks. And if it doesn't break, done, good. Next. Be willing to take a risk. Remove it. Because a lot of times that's the other thing too. And it happens all the time. We got a process, we know it's bureaucratic, we discuss. Somebody objects and somebody's always going to object. And then we say, well, is it worth it again? It's just going to take like another 15 minutes of that guy's work. Oh, that's okay. Just leave it. That's also what happens all the time. It's going to take another 15 minutes of that guy's week. Whatever. That's okay. No, stop. We need to be really radical with these things. Look, if it's pointless, don't debate too much. Get a partner, eliminate it. You're the owner of the process, right? Eliminate it. Deal, done. Watch it. If it breaks, bring it back. If it doesn't break, done. Never again. Next. Look at another one. Sometimes we're like, we want to debate, we want to over debate it. Get it done. And then watch it. If it doesn't break, move on. So this is my 90% of my talk. Just what I wanted to say is, again, it's very, very dangerous. It's very frustrating. It's completely against our culture. It's probably one of the main things that is against our culture. And it's simplicity is what brought us here, and complexity will be what brings us down if we don't take care of it. There is no such thing as a company that's too big to fail. Certainly that doesn't exist. Absolutely doesn't exist. I actually think that that book, what's the name, Too Great to Fail, that's the biggest lie in the world. There's no such thing. There's no such thing. Think about companies that were huge 50 years ago, and you're going to see that a lot of them are alive, a lot of them don't even, it's a relic. And if we're not careful, we could become a relic. So we don't want to become a relic. So this talk, okay, bring a lot of things, probably a lot of these phrases we all heard, and this thing about questioning ourselves and questioning other bureaucracy, but questioning our bureaucracy, being actually champions of killing the bureaucracy inside of our area. You know, we're having this talk, and it's a nice talk, and we could all live here and just kind of like nod at each other, say, yeah, good talk. And yeah, that always happens. Yeah, I saw that last week, and hey, we were talking about that 15 minutes before we came here. Imagine this, it's exactly what's happening. Great. And if it ends there, we just wasted 1 hour. We could be doing another hour of something else more useful than what we're doing here. My suggestion, and however you think it's the right way, because it's your areas, have a discussion with the person you report to, your team. Have a debate about this. Do some of these things. Talk to, bring some of the, we don't need like, this would be also maybe a little bit of a bureaucracy, like to do a mega deal that everybody, let's do it. And then we're going to compile all of this. This is BS. Everybody's just going to come up with something. Just get everybody together. If you think this is important, if you think that this is relevant, if you see some of these things and think that this is frustrating, get with your team, get with the person you report to, and have a debate about this. Bring some of this stuff up, and then be ruthless with it. Be just kill it. Don't negotiate with terrorists. There is a bureaucracy, there is a process that's holding people hostage. Don't negotiate with it. Kill it. If it's not going to be like a food safety deal, people safety deal, if it's going to be obviously risk benefit, right? Take a look at this. But then kill it. And then watch it. And if we need it, we are going to bring it back. Fine. We can always bring it back. Especially if you have a partner in what you're doing. Have a partner. Talk to the person you report to. Say, hey, let's give it a try. No, let's give it a try. Why not? I'll watch it. Don't worry about it. Take responsibility. I'll watch it. And if it looks bad, I'll go back to you. So again, I think that how this talk here could actually change something is if we actually decide, you know what, let's take a look at this and actually have this discussion. And again, do the uncomfortable. Do the uncomfortable. A lot of times the first level that's getting piled up with bureaucracy, a lot of times you and your team don't even know them. Do the uncomfortable. Talk to somebody that you don't know. Figure out who that person is. Talk to them. Because sometimes, I'm going to ask somebody that I know. No. Ask the person that's actually going to get the big chunk of the. I'm going to call the GM and ask the GM if this bureaucracy is happening in the store. No. Ask the person at the warehouse. Don't ask the GM to ask the person, because a lot of times the GM's going to say, this is not important. I'm not saying that they will, but it could happen. Ask the guy directly. You're asking questions. You're not telling them to change what they're doing. You're not going above anybody's head. You're asking a question. Am I bureaucratic? Are my processes, do you understand why I'm asking you to do this? And I think if we do enough of that, and we have again, culture. Fabio says it, and I agree 1,000% with him. It's muscle memory. It's muscle memory, right? It's doing things in a way that you almost don't have to remember that you're doing. If we do that enough and it becomes a culture, I'll tell you what, we can grow, we can double the company. If we lose that, we're not even going to have the company. We're going to go back to $1 billion company if we don't take care of it. This is existential. That's why I think when we were discussing what could I talk about, I don't think there is anything else. At least before this, there was nothing else more important to talk about. So let's get something done. Let's question things. Let's question ourselves, especially. And to the people that are going to be uncomfortable, that are going to say things that we don't want to hear. And once we hear something that we don't want to hear, do something about it. Because that's the other thing too. You ask the guy a question, and then nothing happens, or you just lost. Don't bother asking again. Because the president, you asked me last time, and it's pointless. You're not doing anything about it. So if you're If you're asked, you're gonna ask, you don't need necessarily to change exactly what they want, but you're gonna have to be able to make some action. Either you're gonna explain why it's important, or you're gonna have to, so do it. I think if we do that, we can change the ABS. We actually be guardians of our culture. This is a huge way of being simple. And yeah, ask people. Let's see what happens, and then we can see if there's fruits from this talk. With that, I think we have 10 minutes of Q&A.
You can put your questions in the chat if you're online, or you can ask questions in the room if you'd like.
You do have a question?
You have to get the microphone.
No. Okay. So the first question is, what is your suggestion to combat bureaucracy at a hierarchical level much higher than the position I'm in today? This freezes important processes and factors that people feel.
Can you ask a favor for the person? Can you name what is the bureaucracy right now? Why not? It's anonymous. You don't need to worry. Let's put somebody on the spot here. It's a tough question. I'm asking a tough question. I'm serious. I'm serious. No, it's anonymous. Don't say where it comes from. We don't even know the business unit, guys. Let's see what happens. We're gonna cut one bureaucracy right now. Look, I'm serious. Answer there, guys. But I think the biggest thing is being vocal. Talk to the person that reports to you. Explain why it's pointless. The other thing too I didn't mention: long meetings. There's long meetings that are great and long meetings that are really useful. There are long meetings that are, I mean, if 10 people are in a room and 2 talk, 7 shouldn't be there. 7 should not be there. It's pointless. It should go away. That's the other thing too. Anyway, but my point is, I think we need to be vocal. But then again, that's the second category, I think. Be vocal about this. Be vocal. A lot of times it's going to change things. Sometimes it's not going to change. Some people are just defensive about bureaucracy. That's why I'm proposing that everybody. But on the other hand, if too many people talk about it, a lot of times it changes. But if it doesn't, talk about your bureaucracy too, because a lot of times you have bureaucracy in your life as well. So a lot of times I'm not saying that that's what's happening, but you're gonna have the head of a plant complaining about corporate bureaucracy, but then he puts a lot of bureaucracy on the supervisor. I'm not saying that is happening, but it could happen. Yeah, keep on complaining about bureaucracy in corporate. Talk about it. Be vocal about it. Be vocal in a constructive way. Then take a look at your bureaucracy. Because a lot of times, if everybody did this, if everybody did both, we would really be constructive. What's the bureaucracy?
No answer yet.
Guys, come on. Don't be shy. It's anonymous.
We do have another
really
question.
Yeah.
If you could
Hey,
describe.
hold on, just one thing. Maybe the person that asked doesn't want to say. Anybody else that wants to call out some bureaucracies, go ahead.
I do have an example of a bureaucracy that someone would
Go
like
ahead.
to call out. Creating spreadsheets and files to manage every process and action.
I couldn't. Yeah. Micromanaging. 101.
Someone wants to hear your definition and the difference between bureaucracy and compliance.
No, compliance is not getting yourself in trouble. Let me put it simple. It's really true. It's not doing something dumb. That's compliance. That's compliance, period. It's not doing something wrong that's going to get the company and yourself in trouble. That's the definition of compliance, right? Make sense? I don't know if Kevin is here. That's the definition of compliance. Then, because that's a tough job a lot of times, what do? We put a lot of processes to make sure that doesn't happen. But it's as simple as that. Now, we're going to have controls. They don't need to be bureaucratic at all. They need to be, and plus, every compliance training is one thing, but processes that we have need to make sure that it really. The other thing I will say as well, if you want to have, we don't want to get in trouble. We don't want to do something stupid. That's for sure. We don't want to get the company in trouble. We don't want to get people in trouble. But we are in the protein business. It's impossible to operate in the protein business with zero risk. It's impossible. There's no such thing. I want to have zero risk. Well, don't get up from bed. Stay in bed. And maybe you're still going to have risk. You're still going to have risk being in bed. So there is such a thing as well. Say, hey, okay, we gotta control this, but is this really relevant? I mean, I'll give an example. That's a very good example. When we started putting some of this, I don't know if it was compliance or if it was a procurement process, but there was a guy, when my father managed one of the plants in 98, I don't know, in 90, there was a guy that always took care of the garden. The plant had a big garden, had a big lawn. There was this guy that always took care of it. It got to a point that the guy couldn't work with us anymore because they needed so many documents from this guy to make sure that this guy was paying his taxes, that he was doing everything from a labor perspective that was perfect. The guy was cutting the lawn. I mean, it's not like the guy was sanitizing our plants. That's a very critical area. It was mowing the lawn. Even if that guy was doing everything wrong, do you really need like 10,000, a spreadsheet of 10,000 things for the guy that gets your lawn? How relevant is that? Even if that guy, I'm not saying that obviously we gotta watch and we don't want somebody that's doing doing something completely wrong. But if the guy was doing something wrong, is that your problem? How big of a problem legally or morally or would we really be in? It's more it's that relevant, right? So it's an example. The guy couldn't work with us. No, he can, but he couldn't work with us. You know who it is. It's the guy about the glasses. Anyway, he became a mayor afterwards. No kidding. Anyway. Yeah, go ahead.
So the team member said the example is buying simple patrimonial assets.
Patrimonial meaning like a cooler, right? Like water cooler. Yeah, they give that example. This is the sort of thing that we need to address. Like one of the things I remember, when my father when he came here, when we bought Swift, one of the things that was a complaint of the greedy plant manager, I don't know who it was back then, but was that, you give me 3,500 people to take care of, and I can't buy $1,000 worth of capex. Is that right? You trust me to take care of 3,500 people, but you don't trust me with $1,000. Is that coherent? You're not going to give the guy $10 million to do whatever he wants. You're not going to give zero. So that's where we need to, maybe that's what it is. Another question.
That's it from online. Anybody in the room?
Guys, maybe an intense talk, provoking for sure. But, and again, a lot of times I really think that the biggest frustration, especially when we talk about fighting bureaucracy, is exactly the question that we have is, look, the bureaucracy is coming from way higher up and I can't get myself heard. Okay, keep on trying. I can't maybe we could build a hotline of bureaucracies, right? And address it. Maybe that's a simple way of doing it, or maybe it's a complicated way of doing it. I don't know. Maybe it's a pretty complicated way of doing this. But you know what's pretty easy? Make yourself heard. Right now, stop what you're doing after this. Sit down and don't send an email. Sit down with the person you report to. Talk about the stuff that you're sick of. Especially after this talk, it's pretty timely, to talk about it. Then, once you made yourself heard like that, be at peace that maybe it's going to get done, maybe not. Then do it. Once you're done with doing that, focus like 99% of the stuff on what you control, which is the bureaucracy you create. And make no mistake, everybody here, even me or everybody here can create bureaucracy. Everybody can. So question that. Because if you fix that, at least you fixed what you can control, which is really what we need to focus on. No more questions? We have one more minute. I'm excited to see if something comes up of this talk, really. Thank you.
Thanks, Wesley. This will be uploaded again into JBS Online Learning and University of Pilgrims. My team is going to bring back up the attendance slide, so please fill that out if you haven't. The next development workshop is another global workshop and is April 1st at 2 p.m. It's True Ownership versus Silo by Brett Thomas. And he's going to use the Wendy's partnership as a case study for it. So I think it should be pretty interesting, and we'll see you guys there. Thank you.